Hi, welcome back. So we are going to continue on. We are still in Unit 4. We are looking at percentages and managing merchandise. Today, this video is going to be a presentation on the invoice and what it's used for. So here we go. This is from Chapter 7 in your textbook. The very first section, it's actually quite quick, so this should go fast. All right, so our goals for today about the invoice. We want to make sure that you are able to read an invoice and understand the terminology and the abbreviations. The vast majority of this is fairly regular and is not going to be new material for you. However, there is one term in particular that we are going to go over. We also want you to be able to extend an invoice. That means to carry out the units times the price to get the totals. And then how to total an invoice, including such ideas as calculating tax and looking at the inclusion of shipping. All right, so what is an invoice? An invoice is a comprehensive record of a transaction. In a business situation, it is usually a page or a half a page, uses a description for who you bought the item from, how much it cost, how many units you purchased, whether or not you have time to make payment or whether payment is immediate. There is all kinds of information on an invoice. On a personal consumer-based note, the receipt is generally considered to be your invoice, that narrow strip that comes off the cash register. But in a business-to-business situation, we are actually looking at usually a full sheet of paper these days. The one terminology from an invoice that you may not be familiar with is actually a term that has to do with the shipping, and it is known as the FOB. The FOB stands for free on board or freight on board. It's a description of where ownership of the item is transferred and who pays that shipping. In a roundabout way, it is also information about who is liable or responsible for that merchandise and until what point. So there's two types of FOB, free on board or freight on board. And the first is FOB to the shipping point, sometimes abbreviated as just FOB shipping. And this means that the buyer pays the shipping and takes responsibility for the merchandise. Now, oftentimes this is initially set up by the seller. So the seller might use a regular shipping entity, but you end up, as the purchaser, you end up paying that shipping. You reimburse the seller. The material that is in transit is then the responsibility of the buyer. I'm trying to figure out how to explain this in a better way. You know how, like, if Amazon ships something to you and it gets lost, they just send you another thing and you don't worry about paying shipping? Yeah, that would not be the case here. If, for example, I had purchased some items from China, and I purchased them FOB shipping point. Now, that means that I'm taking responsibility for the merchandise at the point of shipping from China. So if the ship goes down in the Pacific Ocean, that material is lost to me. Like, I can't make up that cost is mine. It's not the people selling me the item. It's my responsibility as a business owner. So anything lost in transit is just that, a loss. If somebody steals it off my front porch, I have to buy a new one. I can't ring up the seller and be like, hey, I'm so sorry, but nope, doesn't happen. Okay. That's, again, we're talking about a business to business situation here. It would probably never fly in consumer based, but because this is between businesses, FOB shipping means that the purchaser, the buyer, is assuming responsibility for the item. Now, the other option is FOB destination, or free on board till the destination, freight on board until the destination. This means that the seller is taking responsibility for the item until it reaches the destination. So the material in transit is the responsibility of the seller until it reaches the destination. Now, sometimes you will see FOB destination and the name of a city, like maybe it's an intermediary point. So, for example, I've purchased something from China, and they might do FOB destination, say, San Diego, because there's a major port in San Diego. So the company that I've purchased it from may take responsibility in getting that item to San Diego, and then I have to take care of it from San Diego to Wisconsin. So that would be FOB destination, and they would write there San Diego, meaning they have it until the destination of San Diego. All right, so that's FOB. FOB is about who was responsible for the material and until where. FOB shipping means that the purchaser takes responsibility for the shipping and the purchase, and FOB destination means the seller takes responsibility until the stated destination, whether that be the buyer's point or some intermediary point. All right. Whew. Okay, here is an example of an invoice. And so we are looking to make sure that you can find the following things. Can you find and identify the seller's ID, the seller's invoice number, an invoice date? Can you find the customer order number, the buyer's identification, the buyer's address? Can you find the sales and or contact person? Can you find the shipping information? Can you find what's known as terms of sale? We'll be handling that a little bit later, a couple of videos from now. Can you determine the FOB? Can you determine the description and number of the material ordered and of the material shipped? Can you find the unit price? Can you find the extended totals, the subtotal, the shipping charges, the blank line? Now, I'll be honest with you, the blank line doesn't always exist these days. The blank line was a courtesy when invoices were bulk printed. These days, we do most of our invoices on a computer, and they're printed one by one. So the blank line isn't necessarily needed. And then the last thing is, can you find the invoice total? So these are just some of the things that we're going to make sure we would like you to be able to find. Hopefully you don't find any of this too hard. Okay, now, how do you extend and total an invoice? It's actually fairly straightforward. You simply want to multiply the number of items by the price of each item. This is known as the unit price times the quantity shipped. The important bit here is that it is the quantity shipped and not the quantity purchased. If it's not shipped to you, you don't have to pay for it. Then you want to take the subtotal of those. That is, add up all of those extended totals. Now, the shipping, the tax, some of the other miscellaneous items are added on later. It isn't until you get to the absolute total that you put all of that together with the shipping and the tax, right? So here's an example of an extending a total. This is just a part of an invoice, the part of an invoice where it would be extended. You can see that they've ordered 12 and shipped 10 of the Angry Bird at $15 a piece, ordered 8, shipped 8 of the Witch at $12 a piece, ordered 15, shipped 15 of Steve Jobs at $12, and ordered 6, shipped 6 of the Amy Winehouse. Now, maybe you can tell what my brain was thinking at this point, and maybe you can't. But this particular example is meant to be one of Halloween costumes. So the Angry Bird, the Witch, Steve Jobs, Amy Winehouse are all meant to be Halloween costumes because we're getting on that time of year anyway. Okay, so in order to extend the totals, we're going to take the 10 Angry Bird items that were shipped times $15 each to get $150. Again, for emphasis, notice that 10 were shipped, so I only have to pay for those 10 on this invoice. The 2 that I ordered, the 2 additional ones that were ordered, but I didn't get, I don't pay for until they ship. Then I would do 8 witches times $12 a piece for $96, 15 costumes of Steve Jobs at $12 a piece for $180, and 6 of the Amy Winehouse at $16 a piece for $96. This gives me an invoice subtotal of $522. How did I get $522? I added the $150 to the $96 to the $180 to the other $96. Now, there are shipping charges on here. It doesn't say whether it's destination or if it's FOB shipping, but I am reimbursing the seller for the shipping charges. They are $87.50. Now, we have a little bit of a unique situation because in Wisconsin, shipping is taxable, meaning whatever I pay someone else to ship my item to me, whether I am a business or a consumer, I have to pay tax on that shipping. Yeah. Okay, so I do have to add that into my subtotal. We do the subtotal before we do tax in Wisconsin. So some of the other problems that you're going to do will have the shipping added on after. You'll subtotal first before you do the shipping. Just be aware that that could be an issue. I want to make sure to say it to you because if you end up doing invoices for a business and you don't put the shipping within the taxable, if you don't put shipping on before you tax, you could end up with a whole bunch of back taxes. So while the textbook is going to do it one way, I need you to be aware that Wisconsin does it a different way. Even if all you remember is that Wisconsin does it differently, second guess yourself there, that's a good thing. Okay, so we have a subtotal of $609.50 once the shipping is added in. Now, because the shipping is taxed in Wisconsin, we have to have that in before we calculate the tax. Tax in Wisconsin, well, I shouldn't say in Wisconsin because that's not quite right. Tax in La Crosse County in the city of La Crosse is 5.5%. So I'm going to add the tax of 0.055 times the $609.50 to get a tax of $33.52. And now my invoice total would be the $609.50 plus the $33.52, or $643.02. Right? And that is an example of extending a total. It's just those 2 sections on the invoice in this case. So here we want to do a check. Can you read an invoice, understand most of the terminology, and understand the abbreviations that are used? Can you extend an invoice, and can you total that invoice? That is, can you calculate the tax and include your shipping? There are review exercises in Chapter 7, Section 1, 1 through 23. If you have a paper copy, that's the word I was looking for. If you have a paper copy of the textbook, that's on pages 197 and 198. The graded assignment from this section is Chapter 7, Section 1. It is Chapter 7, Section 1 is the title of it. And again, if you have any questions or if there's anything that you need clarification on, please don't hesitate to contact your instructor, me, your math support personnel, math center, or a tutor. We are all here to help. Thank you.